Well, great. Now I'm never ever looking at Chuck E. Cheese the same way. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're diving into a movie that has been on my radar for quite some time. The trailer was fun, and boy, this final product was just chaotic. Willy's Wonderland, directed by Kevin Lewis, written by Gio Parsons, and starring Nicolas Cage, Emily Tosta, and Rick Reitz. The movie releases February 12th. Big thank you before we get started with my review, guys, to Screen Media Films for sending me a screener for a review. I seriously don't know what I just witnessed, but it was insane. The movie reminds me a whole lot of the video game Five Nights at Freddy's, which I haven't played, but it's freaky as all heck. And the movie here, Willy's Wonderland, deals with one man named the Janitor who gets sucked into working for Willy's Wonderland, where people, yes people, die by demonic animatronics. If that sounds crazy to you, you have seen nothing and heard nothing yet. Now, before we get into my review, guys, if it's your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I talk about movies early like this all the time. So if you don't want to miss out, go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel. Tap on that bell so you don't miss out on videos like this and my WandaVision reactions on Fridays. Let's just say that series is getting a little crazy. And if you haven't, smash that like button, guys, and get loud in the comments below and let me know, are you watching this movie this weekend? And if you are, what did you think of it? Because we got a lot to talk about. So before I get into really what I liked about the film, guys, you gotta temper your expectations for Willy's Wonderland. This won't be an Oscar-worthy movie. The writing can sometimes be a little bit on the shallow side, and the direction is very much like a sea-level horror kind of film, but all of those elements blend together and give it this very cult-like feel. And the one actor that helps bring it all home, guys, is Nicolas Cage. I mean, his scenes are the absolute best in this film. His face-offs with Willy and those creepy animatronic characters are just unreal sometimes. I mean, the first fight with Ozzy, I believe is the name, was so fun. But it gets even more fun. He is just a man who literally does not have a name. They never reveal a first and last name for him. And also, he says not one word. And guess what, guys? It absolutely works. I didn't think it would work, guys, but him not saying anything just added to how darn awesome he was in this film. Even though he said nothing, we got a sense of his personality through his routine. Every time his watch would go off, he'd go in the refrigerator, grab a beer, play a round of pinball, and then go kill Willy and his friends. Okay, that sounded a little intense. And that's because it was pretty intense. Seeing him take out these animatronic animals one by one, all the gore and the action, it was just kind of fun, y'all. And speaking of the action, I'm not gonna lie, I was laughing in so many scenes, and that's not to say it's because I didn't enjoy it or maybe the scenes were bad. It's just because the movie is so schlocky. It's very slapstick sometimes, and the jokes here are not good, but I found it really enjoyable. And the movie really does own it. I love that the script is not trying to be bigger than what it is. It just knows the kind of movie it wants to be, and it executes it relatively well for the most part. And the screenwriter here, Gio Parsons, somehow fits in an origin story for Willy's Wonderland. I don't know how you do that in a movie like this, but in the hour and 28 minutes we got on screen, somehow he fit in a tale of how Willy's Wonderland came to be. And let me tell you guys, I was digging it. And I'm really glad they didn't just go the crazy animatronic animals killing everyone for no reason route, because that would have made for a shallower story. Instead, we get this, something that has a layer to it, surprisingly, and it just adds more fuel to all the mayhem. So when we get closer and closer to the end, that third act is definitely paying off. And let me tell you, that third act was the craziest of the entire film. Let's just say people were losing body parts. And oh my goodness, did that gore just feel so C-D level type horror stuff, and it worked for me. Guys, it was cheaply done sometimes, but man, it just flowed well. And that's the thing, we get into that final 10-15 minute stretch, and I was smiling. I was gonna clap at one point. It's just so cool to see. And it's worth pointing out that Emily Tosta, who plays Liv Hawthorne in this movie, does a pretty darn good job. I actually really liked her alongside Nicolas Cage, and if they do come back to make a sequel to this somehow, some way, it would be nice to see them team up, because they both kind of played off each other pretty well, and you can tell they were both just having fun with the role. Now, the biggest downfall for Willy's Wonderland, guys, really is everything outside of those Nicolas Cage scenes. It's just not as memorable, and honestly, the movie is less than entertaining sometimes. When we try to give some backstory to our characters, it doesn't really click as well, and I think the execution's a little poor. There's this moment in the second act where it gets a little bit slow, and I'm not saying that this movie needs to be off-the-wall action all the time, but I just don't think the acting and even the writing was particularly good there. And I could have dealt with the cheesy one-liners and the forced dialogue, but it's just the acting that, again, doesn't really bring it home for me. And while the script was self-aware, and I'm glad it was, because this movie didn't need to be anything else other than straight up in your face gore and action, I think that there were times that I wanted it to be kind of scary. And it not being a very creepy film is okay for the most part, but I do wish that they dove into some genuine scares. Siren Sarah, for example, is one of those animatronic figures that creeped me out. Honestly, she was the creepiest part of the film, but they don't really dive into that too much. It's maybe a 5-minute scene that involves her being very scary, and other than that, everything else was a little predictable and it didn't really freak me out. And I have to say, during some of the fights, I thought the sound design was a little off. A lot of the punches didn't feel like they were really landing, and I'm not sure why. It could maybe just be I was watching it on not a 5.1 surround system, but usually some action movies still have an impact when it comes to the hand-to-hand and the objects hitting, and it worked in some moments, but in other moments it didn't really do the job for me. Now, the last thing that I didn't like too much about Willy's Wonderland, guys, is that there's no itch for me to revisit this movie. Now listen, it was still an enjoyable film, but I just don't think I'm coming back to this one, only because the shock value in some scenes is going to be gone the second time around. That was half the fun, is seeing things that you never thought you'd see on the big screen. But overall, guys, Willy's Wonderland is just a movie where if you love Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage and you like some cheap horror and even some gore, guys, this movie's for you. It's chaotic. Boy, this is just pure mayhem. But what I love so much is that the director and the writer here work very well together to bring a product that doesn't need to be bigger than itself, and it exactly knows its audience. This is going to get some people on board, and it's going to develop a cult following. I'm telling you guys, as the year goes on, heck, even as the month goes on, you're going to start seeing more and more people clamor for Willy's Wonderland 2, because this movie is probably going to attract a decent enough audience. Now, did everything outside of Nicolas Cage work well? No, not really, and Emily Tosta was the best part of our supporting cast here. And I will say that I almost wish we didn't focus too much on the origin tale, but I still thought that the film, for what it's worth, was still darn decent. And that's the kind of film Willy's Wonderland is. It's a 3.5 out of 5 kind of movie, but I can't lie to you guys, I still was laughing. I still was saying, oh god, that's gross. And if a movie can elicit a reaction out of me like that, hey, it's a good time. So Willy's Wonderland, why not? If you don't have the kids this weekend, or if you don't have kids at all, you might as well go ahead and watch this movie. Throw it on. Don't think about anything else, and I think it will serve its purpose for an hour and a half. Alrighty guys, well there you have it. That's my real review of Willy's Wonderland, again, that releases on PVOD February 12th. I'm excited for you guys to see it, but I really want to know what you think of it down in the comments below. Did it remind you too much of Five Nights at Freddy's? Were you okay with the film? And what's your favorite Nicolas Cage movie? I know mine, I think. And guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below and stay subscribed to the channel, because this weekend we got Snyder Cut, WandaVision, like I said, and a whole lot more. I can't wait to get more opportunities like this, and none of it's possible without you, your love, and your support. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.